UFC Vegas 87, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev just ended, and this is going to be my full card post-fight. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you my reaction and breakdown. But let me just start off with this. Saudi Arabia fumbled the bag. How could they turn down such a fight night card like this? I mean, the main event was mind-blowing, and they missed out on this. So I wanted to point that out in the beginning of the video. But let's start off with the very first fight. Loik Radzhabov versus Abdul Karim Al-Selwady. First round, really both guys looked kind of sloppy. Radzhabov landed a big shot that hurt him, but for the most part, won the round, landed the better shots on the feet, was more aggressive. Selwady was kind of falling around the cage the entire round. I give the first round to Radzhabov. Second round, Selwady kind of came back, started landing some good shots, had some top control. It looked like Radzhabov was starting to gas out. And then the third round, early in the third round, Al-Selwady had a takedown, but Radzhabov got back up, and then basically right after that, boom, right hand, put him down, and it was a late stoppage. Chris Tione should be in jail for this stoppage. He dropped him with a picture-perfect right hand, followed him down, just started smashing him over and over and over again, and Chris Tione's like, not jumping in here, not jumping in here. It's a late stoppage. It wasn't like the worst stoppage I've ever seen, but it was clearly a late stoppage. Radzhabov gets it done. I mean, was winning the fight in the first round. It looked like he was going to gas out and kind of lose to Al-Selwady after the second round, but rallied in the third. He said he was drinking too much water, something along those lines. Rallied in the third, scrambled up from bottom, and found that right hand and got a TKO in the third round. Moving up on the card, we have Ľudovít Klein versus AJ Cunningham. Ľudovít Klein gets a first round TKO, teep kick to the body. And, this is actually sad. AJ Cunningham came in on short notice just to kind of fill a spot on this card. Got the absolute dog shit beat out of him. I mean, he got messed up brutally. He was getting eaten lots of shots, but he was eating them, He wasn't really getting like crazy rocked, but they were like bad shots that were really rattling his brain. And, he was just eating them and surviving and wasn't getting really dropped really bad. He was throwing back. You could tell he was there to win, but this fight was not a winnable fight for him, to be honest, especially on short notice. And then basically Klein started mixing it into the body. He's realizing, I'm not KOing him to the head. So the combination at the end, he landed a head kick that was I think partially blocked. And then he ripped a couple shots to the body, landed a head kick, then threw a teep kick. And Cunningham just folded. Just absolutely folded to the ground. I'm not even sure if he followed up at all. Maybe followed up with a couple shots. But either way, after the teep kick, he was done. But good adjustment from Klein to realize, okay, I'm not getting him out of there. Let me start mixing into the body. Klein looked good, but against what level of competition? Also on short notice. So not really a whole lot to break down about that fight. Moving up on the card, we have Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. Christian Leroy Duncan outclassing him on the feet in the first round. I said Claudio Ribeiro's a Family Dollar Yo Romero out of his prime on top of that. And first round, Christian Leroy Duncan was just lighting him up, using his footwork, and Ribeiro wasn't throwing back at all. He had like one or two rare bursts where he would try to throw stuff, but never really came close. At one point, he was being so defensive that Christian Leroy Duncan was like coming in and like pulling his guard down and throwing shots because Ribeiro had such a high guard and just not fighting back, so it wasn't leaving a whole lot of openings. But basically, Christian Leroy Duncan outclassed him in the first round and really was just beating him up, pulling down the guard, throwing the elbows in the clinch. Clearly won the first round. I think Ribeiro shot in on a takedown the first, but got stuffed, and basically just lost in every facet. Lost on the feet, lost in the clinch, lost on the ground, or they didn't have anything on the ground in the first round. But in the second round, Christian Leroy Duncan came out and said, you know what, I'm outclassing him on the feet, let me take it to the ground. Threw a flying knee, got in close, clinched up, double leg takedown, immediately just mounted him, started throwing ground and pound elbows. Ribeiro's trying to block, and then the ref's like, fight back. He starts throwing shots from the bottom. That's when he really starts to open up to ground and pound shots. Christian Leroy Duncan smashing him there. Then he gives up his back, flattened out. Christian Leroy Duncan just TKOs him on the ground with him flattened out. Great performance from Christian Leroy Duncan. The striking looked really solid. Again, and we have to take into account the level of opposition he's going against, but the movement was good. The striking was good. The finishing ability was good. And also he mixed in the grappling. So he didn't run into any adversity in this fight. And I had high hopes for him. And then he lost to Armen Petrosian. And now he's come back and got a win against Ribeiro. And I think he looked really good. The striking looked, really solid in this fight against a guy who he should have finished. He went out there and found the finish in the second round. And he mixed in his grappling, which I was happy to see, to get that double leg. And Ribeiro had just had nothing to offer on the ground. I mean, Ribeiro should be embarrassed of this performance. Wasn't fighting back at all on the ground or on the feet. Barely threw any shots. I would love to know how many shots he actually threw because he was throwing almost nothing. Moving up on the card, we have Javid Basharat versus Aiemann Zahabi. Aiemann Zahabi gets the unanimous decision. I think this was a robbery. I have to go back and watch the third round. First round, clear as day for Farid Basharat. Pressuring, landing good kicks, leg kicks, side kicks to the body. I think at one point he landed a hook kick in the first round. Clearly won the first round. Not up for debate. Second round, Javid started to slow down, look sloppier, shoot some sloppy takedowns, but I thought he was winning it just barely because Aiemann Zahabi was starting to get more aggressive in that second round and landed some shots of his own. But at the tail end of the second round, Aiemann Zahabi landed a shot, a big power shot that kind of threw Javid Basharat off balance. I'm not sure if he was hurt, but it was a nasty shot. And I thought it stole the second round for Aiemann Zahabi, but I don't know if the judges will give him that round. We'll have to see what the judges do. Then the third round, basically, it was back and forth, and Javid Basharat was just landing the cleaner shots because Aiemann Zahabi was just punching air and landing on forearms and wasn't really landing any clean shots in that third round. I thought the third round was a clear round for Javid Basharat. I thought it was 29-28 is what I had for Basharat. The judges give it 29-28 Aiemann Zahabi. They were talking about the corner on the commentary. I swear in these Apex events, I swear you have corners influencing scorecards. Sometimes commentary influencing scorecards. And I had a lot of people saying, Joey, no, he clearly won. Aiemann Zahabi clearly won the third round. Well, I think a lot of people are just biased because they were listening to the commentary because the commentary was acting like Zahabi was getting close to a finish in the third round when almost all of his strikes were literally not landing. So I'll have to go back and watch. I think, I just think it was so clear first and third for Javid Basharat. Unfortunately, the judges don't know what they're looking at. They don't know how to score a fight. And Aiemann Zahabi gets the win. He gets it done by decision. Really, honestly, he had a low output in this fight outside of the third round. Really, even the second round, he wasn't that aggressive, but he did start to pick it up a little bit in the second round. But no real grappling in this fight. I think he had a couple takedown shots from Javid, but they were easily stuffed by Aiemann Zahabi. And Aiemann Zahabi gets it done on the judges' scorecard. So fair enough to him. Moving up on the card, probably the best fight on the entire card, Vinicius Oliveira versus Benardo Sopaj. I think is how I can't remember how you pronounce it. I think it's Benardo Sopaj. This was a crazy, crazy fight. Vinicius Oliveira gets a third round flying knee KO. And what is so crazy is the first round, Oliveira's landed some good leg kicks. Sopaj gets a takedown, controls him on the ground, beats him up on the ground, had the full mount for a minute. Not for a minute, for a second. Kind of got out of that, ended up in like full guard, but did some decent ground and pound. And there wasn't anything super crazy on the feet before that. And, even I was slightly favoring maybe Sopaj. And so first round for Sopaj, clearly. By the way, he stepped in on short notice. Second round, Sopaj comes out, gets a takedown early, starts dominating him in the grappling. Full mount, ground and pounding him, had his back, had him flattened out. It looked like a couple times it was getting close to a stoppage. And I thought for sure, bare minimum, this is going to be a 10-8 round. It might get stopped here. It was just absolutely destroying him. But what I will say is, Oliveira did have a decent guard up, even when he was kind of getting smashed from the flattened out position. He did have his guard up a decent amount, and he wasn't like, even though he was getting smashed, he wasn't taking like this brutal, like concussive damage there. And then eventually, after like 2 minutes of that, Sopaj kind of got tired because he's on short notice. He ends up getting out of that position. You have Oliveira scramble out of the position. And then Oliveira, once he stands up, he starts smashing him. Starts absolutely smashing him on the feet. He ended up, I think, getting a takedown, or there was like a scramble where he ended up on his back, almost got the rear naked choke. Then they ended up back on the feet and him smashing him on the feet. It was just absolutely destroying him. And then the end of the round, Oliveira was just landing at will. I mean, Oliveira was clearly defeating Sopaj in that second round. And I think there might even been, he ended up on top of him. I can't remember the second round for sure. But Oliveira clearly won the second round, even though he almost got stopped in the second round multiple times from ground and pound. After he got out of the position, Sopaj had nothing to offer and just got smashed on the feet. And I think there was some grappling as well in that second round. And then the third round, Oliveira exhausted, but still throwing wild winging shots. Sopaj's completely exhausted at this point. And, Oliveira's landing leg kicks. Sopaj's like kind of throwing back occasionally, but he's completely gassed out. And then Oliveira's smashing these leg kicks. He hurts him multiple times in the third round. And then he lands a left hand that's kind of partially blocked, then a nasty leg kick. You see Sopaj kind of stumble over to the side of the cage, and he thinks he's going to kind of have a moment to breathe. He looks over at the clock. Oliveira sees that, sprints at him, and throws a flying knee that lands right on the chin and puts him to sleep. What a performance by Vinicius Oliveira. I mean, I thought both these guys kind of looked amateur in this fight, and the barrier of entry to the UFC is lowering, but shout out to both guys. This was a crazy fight. This was a crazy momentum swing. I love a good momentum swing in a fight. And Oliveira was looking for the finish. He knew he probably won the second round, but maybe he was thinking, I did get smashed on the ground quite a bit. Maybe I don't have the second round. And then he was like, I got to get that third round finish because I know I lost the first round. And he went out there and found the finish. It was like 30 seconds left. Let me check Topology really quick. Yeah, it was like there was 19 seconds left when he landed the flying knee. It was a brutal KO. I feel bad for Benardo Sopaj because he takes it on short notice. He's young. He's on his way to potential win. And then, you know, he just ends up getting absolutely wrecked and destroyed. And that's going to take years off his life and definitely take some off of his career, in my opinion, as well. So Vinicius Oliveira gets it done. Looks still very amateurish, but he gets it done via third round flying knee KO. He's definitely going to get a performance bonus for that. Moving up on the card to the featured prelim. I mean, how did Saudi Arabia miss out on Eryk Anders, Jamie Pickett? Eryk Anders wins via unanimous decision. Jamie Pickett rocked him in the first round. Eryk Anders survived and, you know, really was just able to survive, was in on takedowns, had some clinch work. Jamie Pickett was able to defend the takedown. First round I had for Pickett. You had to give it to Pickett because he dropped him badly. Second round, basically, it was Pickett getting taken down over and over and controlled and clinching up and losing the clinch positions and being, you know, kind of accepting the position as well. And basically you have Anders just kind of on top of him to end the round, beating him up, ground and pound. I think even had full mounted in the second round as well. Didn't get close to it. Didn't really get close to a finish, but was beating him up. Clearly won the second round. Third round, same thing. Just third round was even worse than the second round, but Anders was able to get the takedown with ease. Jamie Pickett kind of gave up. I think at one point he was close to getting finished in the third round, was getting ground and pound pretty badly. The referee's looking at it close, but he's able to survive. Jamie Pickett retires in the cage afterwards, thank God. Or he doesn't retire in the cage afterwards. That wasn't him. But he announced he was retiring before this, and rightfully so. He's done. Eryk Anders is not the elite of the elite, and Eryk Anders is basically blowing him out of the water in the wrestling. He doesn't have to knee him to the groin to take him down like Bo Nickel did. So, I mean, not the greatest of fights, but it was okay. Moving up on the card to the main card, Matt Schnell versus Steve Erceg. This was a banger fight. I really enjoyed this. Erceg looking good early, but Schnell kind of pressing forward, being the gritty guy he is, having some success of his own. A right hand from Erceg kind of stumbles Schnell. Then Erceg starts to get over aggressive, gets hit with a counter shot, hurt a bit himself. But then after that, Erceg just landed the better shots, clearly wins the first round. And, you know, really starting to bust him up towards the end of that first round as well. Second round, boom, nasty combination. There was a left to the body, and then, or no, I think there was a right hand to the body, and then a left hand upstairs. So he threw a nasty right hand to the body. It was like 15 seconds into the second round. Right hand to the body, left hand upstairs for Steve Erceg. Just sleeps Matt Schnell out cold. He was putting two thumbs up, but I don't think he was there. You know, some people were saying early stoppage. I'm kidding. I'm obviously kidding. But Steve Erceg looked phenomenal in this fight. And this might be a bit of a hot take. I know there's some talk about the flyweight division's in peril right now. Manel Kape misses weight and his fight gets canceled. Then you have Brandon Moreno losing to Brandon Royval. Then you have Amir Albazi who's injured. And there's talk of like maybe Mokaev, who we're going to talk about in a second, getting a title shot. Give me Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Give Steve Erceg a title shot within, I'm trying to remember when he made his short notice debut. I think it was in the last year. Imagine he's fighting for a title in the UFC from short notice debut to a title within a year. That'd be crazy. Maybe I'm off on the timing because that fight would be in June. But Erceg looked phenomenal in this fight. And I just think he's really polished everywhere. I think his footwork's really good. His striking's really good. He has good power. Makes good decisions. Has good grappling as well. Didn't really have to use it in this fight. But absolutely destroys Matt Schnell with that nasty left hook and puts him to sleep. Doesn't even follow up, by the way. Doesn't even follow up at all. Moving up on the card, we have Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzat Almakhan. It's so funny. We were talking about this fight on stream, and I said I can already imagine Bekzat rocking Umar in the first round, then Umar dominating, and then everyone calling Umar a fraud afterwards. That's almost identical to what happened in this fight. Umar Nurmagomedov got clipped early. Got a single leg, then just dominated him afterwards. Controlled him, beat him up on the ground. Second round, same thing. Single legs, taking him down, beating him up, smashing him. Had full mount at one point in time, but landed some shots. But Bekzat kind of bucked out of it, ended up back to his feet, but just right back down. Second round was a 10-8 round. Umar Nurmagomedov, same thing in the third round. Early takedown, domination, full mount, destroying him. Third round wasn't as much damage as the second round, but I think you could make an argument for a 10-8 for the third round. Umar was just too much for him. Too big, too strong. The grappling was superior. And, you know, I know Umar got clipped early, but that was really the only bad spot in this fight. This was almost an identical fight in a way to Arman Tsarukyan versus Joaquim Silva, where it's like Arman just wants to fight. They book him against Joaquim Silva, even though it doesn't make perfect sense. Joaquim Silva, I think, rocked him in the second round. But then Arman got the finish in the third, but dominated the fight for the majority of the fight. I think it goes to show you, man, there's so many guys that are really good outside the UFC. I'd like to see Bekzat if he can make, or I wonder if he can make flyweight. Because if he can make flyweight, I mean, I was watching some of his tape outside the UFC. He hasn't been fighting the best competition, but striking looked good, grappling looked good. I'm not talking about in this fight. And obviously he was dangerous on his feet. You could feel kind of the tension in the air when they were on the feet. Umar kind of looked a little bit sloppy, had his chin up in the air a bit, backing up. When Bekzat did move forward, but Umar would always find that single leg, get the top control, and just dominate him from the top control and land some good ground and pound shots. And Umar gets it done via decision. I think some of the scorecards might have had 30-25, which is absolutely crazy, but justified, honestly. So Umar gets it done. Is it against the best level of competition? He calls out Corey Sandhagen afterwards. He talks about how he was sick, apparently, before this fight or this morning or whatever. But overall, I think this was a solid performance from him. I think he dominated a guy like Bekzat, who might have a bright future in the UFC. We'll just have to see. So he gets it done. I'd like to see him against Corey Sandhagen next. I'd like to see him against a big test. Hopefully we get that fight next. Moving up on the card, we have Alex Perez versus Muhammad Mokaev. This was a bizarre fight, honestly. I mean, I think both guys look like absolute dog shit in this fight. Early, Muhammad looked really good. He looked like he wanted to strike, was landing good shots. Perez started to have a little bit of success, maybe 3 minutes into the round, and then Mokaev started to shoot takedowns and get stuffed, and then eventually found a takedown and was just having difficulty controlling him, had like his legs scooped up, and towards the end of the first round, finally he kind of cemented the position and had like a, I don't remember exactly where he was, if it was like a 3/4 mount or what it was, but he had the Dagestani handcuff and started pounding Perez up against the fence for the last 30 seconds, pause, and clearly won. Mokaev won the first round. Second round, Mokaev started to look tired. Perez looked tired too, shooting sloppy takedowns. I mean, early in round two, there was a crazy scramble where Mokaev got his back, but Perez got back to his feet. It was like a standing rear naked choke attempt. Then Perez got out of that. Mokaev was still on him in the clinch, and then eventually just looking for takedowns, but getting stuffed against Perez. Sometimes he would find, like, I don't even know if they'd be considered takedowns, where he'd get him down kind of for a second, but he popped right back up, didn't cement the position. But throughout these scrambles, where Mokaev's really looking like horrible, there's Perez throwing some elbows, the Travis Brown elbows, if you watched Alex Pereira, Yuri Prohaska, those side elbows as someone's in on your position. But in the second round, those elbows were what won Perez the second round, in my opinion. I think the second round was kind of close, but it was just Mokaev didn't do a whole lot of damage and then was shooting takedowns nonstop. The optics of the takedowns were horrible. He looked like he was dodging a dodgeball that was thrown at him at 50 miles an hour. He was just squatting down and just praying that Perez would come to him and then he could take him down. He had the one moment early where he had the back and whatnot, but didn't do anything with it. And I think Perez stole around with those elbows, was making Mokaev change position with those elbows, doing some damage. You could hear the thud on him. And I think second round, I scored it for Perez. Then the third round, Mokaev outstruck him in the third round. Was clearly tired, but was landing on the feet, shooting for some more ugly takedowns where he's just squatting down like he's dodging it. He looked like he got sniped multiple times. It looked like he was getting dropped. I thought the judges might rob him because I thought he clearly won the third round because of the optics of the way he was dropping. And then you had multiple moments where you had borderline illegal knees from Perez, but we never really got a second look at him. And then basically Mokaev landed on the feet, had a couple takedowns, had a Kurt Angle suplex in the third round as well. I thought Mokaev outstruck him and outgrappled him in the third round. Perez, honestly, I think both these guys look like shit in this fight because Mokaev's dropping low, like it was an absolute embarrassment in the second, third round. But then Perez would stuff takedowns and then just sit in the front headlock position doing absolute jack shit. So I'm just surprised Perez even made it to the cage. But I'm not super impressed with either guy. Mokaev's calling for a title shot. I know the division's kind of wide open right now. I say give Steve Erceg the title shot. That's what I want to see. Give Steve Erceg a flyweight title shot. If you saw this in the video, comment down below. Give Steve Erceg a flyweight title shot next. Mokaev doesn't have cardio to go 5 rounds. And I think he's getting submitted by Pantoja. If he shoots on some of those sloppy shots, leaving his neck exposed. There was a couple times Perez kind of looked to lock up a ninja choke. But Perez should be embarrassed too. He did literal no damage other than those elbows. And I feel like he had a couple opportunities to make Mokaev pay in those positions. You know, he could have just started punching him to the body a little bit on those front headlock positions, but he wasn't able to do it. And Mokaev wins 29-28, which I thought was pretty clear. Moving up on the card, we have Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. I just want to scream ooh and move on. I mean, it was a garbage fight, absolutely horrific fight. I don't know how they're elite level athletes supposedly in the UFC. Are they even training? They both had very limited cardio. There wasn't a whole lot of a fight going on. The first round, Tyson Pedro landed good leg kicks, but Petrino landed the better shots. I gave Petrino the first round. Second round, both guys were barely landing. I thought it was a 50-50 round. Pedro landed a couple leg kicks. I don't remember who I gave it to. I think I thought it was like a 50-50 round. And then the third round, Petrino just grappled him and clinched him and didn't do any damage and looked for some submission attempts, but never really came close. And I thought he won the third round. It was a garbage fight. You had the referee warning him. Mark Smith was telling him to get to work. And for once, Mark Smith deserved to open his mouth. But it was a garbage co-main event. It wasn't exciting. Tyson Pedro retires in the cage afterwards. That was more exciting than anything. You have Henry Cejudo watching the broadcast with a balled fist. Like, they didn't give me my second retirement on camera, because I think Henry Cejudo was going to fake a retirement at UFC 298 recently. He was going to say, emotions are running high. I'm going to think about it. He just wanted the mic time. And then a couple days later, he's going to say, you know what? I'm going to stay in. And he didn't get that mic time or camera time from the UFC because that's what he wants. He wants clout. Him and his coach, Eryk, want the clout. So Tyson Pedro, I guess he told the UFC, look, I'm going to retire. I'm done. And he did. And I think he should retire after that performance. It seemed like he retired before the fight, in my opinion. So did Petrino. So Petrino landed the bigger shots. He lands big shots, and he would snap Pedro's head back and then not go after him at all. There was one time where he landed, I think it was a left hand. It was like a step. It was like a step-in left-hand jab, kind of. I don't even know how to describe it, but it wasn't like a full jab, but it wasn't a full left hand. And Pedro kind of like took it bad and was like looking at the ground. And Petrino just backs up. Doesn't do shit. Horrible fight IQ. Just has no, I mean, he has no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no aggression at all. You know, the lack of killer instinct for Petrino in this fight. And they just ate leg kicks the entire fight. So that was the biggest thing that Pedro did. He retired in the cage afterwards, but uneventful main event. Petrino gets the decision, unanimous decision. Moving up on the card, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev, the main event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik wins via fourth round TKO due to retirement. And this was an absolute abomination of a fight. Abomination of a fight. First round, Jairzinho Rozenstruik's pumping the jab. Shamil Gaziev is like a bull in a china shop, just rushing forward, not even lowering his head. I mean, like, he was just running into him like face to face. It was so weird. There was like multiple times where I thought there might have been head clashes. Jairzinho was kind of stuffing the takedowns and just pumping the jab. And then last minute and a half of the round, Shamil really pressed, I think, a single leg, and then got the leg up and then kicked the other leg out from underneath him, got on top. Didn't do a lot of damage. Threw some elbows, did a decent amount of damage. I thought Shamil took the first round. After that, basically, it was rinse repeat for second, third, and fourth round. Fourth round, Jairzinho got a little bit more aggressive. But it was basically Rozenstruik jabbing him. Shamil gassed, occasionally throwing a combination and looking for a takedown. And by the time the fourth round came around, Shamil was just leaning forward like this with his mouthpiece kind of falling out of his mouth. I don't know what was going on there. And literally not fighting. Like, the way he was fighting, he should have been DQ'd for literally not fighting. He was just standing there. Just standing there, not throwing back. And then Jairzinho, I feel like he embarrassed himself. I know people were acting like this was a world-class win for Jairzinho. I feel like he could have finished him multiple times because he wasn't fighting, because Shamil was completely gassed. He didn't have the cardio. After the first round, he had no cardio, which is crazy because the output in the first round wasn't even that significant. But after the first round, Shamil barely landed any shots. Jairzinho just jabbed his face off, occasionally mixed in the low kicks. And then Shamil's just chilling there like this. Please jab me in the face, Jairzinho. Please jab me in the face, biggie boy. Yeah, that's what it felt like. And I think it was the fourth round, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, towards the end of the fourth round, got a little bit more aggressive, throwed some wild winging shots, kind of busted him out. I think Gaziev might have had a broken nose after the first or second round because they were holding his nose, it was bleeding. I don't know if it was broken. I don't want to be Joe Rogan. But after the fourth round, Gaziev's arguing with his corner back and forth and saying something and pointing to his face. And Mark Goddard's like, no, tell me what he said. Translate what he said. And he said, oh, he's having trouble seeing in his eye. And they brought in the doctor. Shamil says, I can't see out of my eye. They stopped the fight. I believe it's bogus. There was a chance he couldn't see out of his eye. I think there's a chance he couldn't. But I think it's completely bogus. I think he wanted out of the fight because he was completely exhausted. And I think a lot of people are going to shit on Shamil Gaziev, and it might even come off as if I'm shitting on Shamil Gaziev right now, because he did quit. I think we need to normalize this more. I think, I don't know, I would love to see the translation of anyone that understood the language that they were speaking. I think he was arguing with his corner to stop the fight. At that point, Shamil was completely gassed, taking damage for 3 rounds straight. Why do we need to see any more? Why do we need to see any more? They should have stopped the fight. The ref should have been like, you know what? He's not fighting. Let's end the fight right now. I'm going to wave it off after a jab. Corner should have stopped it. Somebody should have stepped in and look, this fight isn't competitive. This guy is gassed out. Let's stop the fight. Why give him more damage? So I think it's kind of embarrassing he's lying about it. But at the end of the day, if his coaches aren't going to save him, the doctors aren't going to save him, the ref isn't going to save him, what's he going to do? He's completely exhausted. He's about to have a heart attack in the cage. So I'm glad that he got out of there because he was taking a lot of damage. He was busted up and he wasn't fighting back. So it could have been stopped. I know it would have been the weirdest TKO ever, but it could have been stopped by Mark Goddard, honestly. And also, he was grabbing the fence in the clinch. But this fight was an abomination. Saudi Arabia should be happy. They dodged a bullet. I know I was being sarcastic earlier in the video. What a horrible main event. This should have never been 5 rounds. Who is Shamil Gaziev's manager? Why would they take a 5-round fight when the dude's never fought past like 2 rounds ever? And he has no elite level heavyweight experience, and Jairzinho's considered elite level heavyweight. So horrible decision making, horrible fight. I think both guys should be embarrassed. I think you book maybe Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Sergey Spivak next. I think that'd be interesting. Jairzinho had nothing off of his back, so if Shamil could have got a takedown, that's why I picked Shamil. If Shamil could have got a takedown multiple times, he could have won this fight. Imagine had he won the first 3 rounds just barely and then quit then after the 4th round. That'd been crazy because he was exhausted. But yeah, overall, decent event. Not a horrible, not a great event. Main event was absolute garbage. Co-main event was absolute garbage. I think the highlight of the night is Vinicius Oliveira's flying knee KO. And then also it was crazy seeing Umar get dropped in the first round. But outside of that, not super impressed. And also Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg needs to get the title shot. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.